that it's October? It is honestly, I feel like I say this often, but it is definitely mind-blowing that we're in the last quarter of 2021. Like, this year is really trying to come and go, and I don't know how I feel about that. And it's just like really trippy and can definitely feel overwhelming sometimes. I was just sharing with a good friend the other day, like, I feel like I'm still trying to catch up from like 2020, and we're literally about to be in 2022, and it could just feel like all of the things. And so today I wanted to talk about practices that we should implement to help us stay connected and grounded. And so there are two practices I want to kind of unpack and dive in with you today. So let's get to it. All right, so the first practice that I feel can help us remain connected and grounded is doing self-check-ins. I also like to call them heart talks, but essentially a self-check-in / heart talk is an intentional act of touching base with yourself and where you are mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, the whole nine. And I feel that self-check-ins are such a beautiful opportunity to learn grace and self-compassion towards yourself. And I feel that they help us remain connected and grounded because they create that first base connection, right? That first connection with ourselves. And, it's so important in living intentionally and living slowly and just being a human being, honestly, that we are connected to ourselves, because when we aren't, right? When we are disconnected mentally and emotionally and physically and just the whole nine, it impacts how we first honor ourselves, right? And also how we show up in a given moment or space. And so it's just super important to have that consistent and intentional first base connection with ourselves. And so they're also important for remaining connected and grounded, because when we are connected and grounded to and within ourselves, we are better able to move through our day-to-day with a deeper awareness and intention. And so at its core, a self-check-in is rooted in intentional questioning. In my experience, it always begins with like that one question of, how are you? Really? And so sometimes I just find myself saying, Danae, how are you? Or I'll say, heart, how are you doing? Right? And sometimes it stops there and I just share, like, honestly, this is what I'm feeling. This is where I'm at, and I hold space for it. I don't necessarily rush to a solution or, trying to get through the feeling really quickly. Sometimes it's literally just saying, I'm exhausted, and giving myself grace and permission to feel what I'm feeling in that moment. Sometimes there is additional questioning, and those follow-up questions often look like, it goes like, how are you? How are you feeling? What are you needing in this moment? And that is followed up with, how can that need be met in a healthy and productive way? And, it's just, sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it's like, whoa, this is a journaling session. This is more than a moment I can have while making my coffee. Like, I actually need to sit here and unpack. But sometimes it's just quick, and it's just touching in and saying, like, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm needing. This is how I'm going to get this need met. And this is how I'm going to communicate that need to my community or whoever is really close to me. But yeah, so at its core, self-check-in is just touching base with yourself and where you're at mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in any capacity. And it's helpful in helping us remain connected and grounded, because it helps to first build that first base connection, which is to yourself. And when we're connected to ourselves, we can better maneuver and show up to our day-to-day into any given situation with awareness and intention, right? And when we're connected to ourselves and we're grounded within ourselves, we can better honor ourselves, right? And we can better show up and connect in a given moment. So that's practice 1, self-check-ins. So let's get into practice 2. And the second practice I want to talk about is setting intentions. Y'all, when we set intentions, we're basically casting mini vision for how we want to show up to our day or just in any space. Setting intentions, they give us this foundation that we can ground ourselves upon and honestly lean on. And I have just found that when I've set intentions, whenever I'm feeling swirly or off center or just like in the fog, in the overwhelm, I can go back to that intention and recalibrate and recenter. And also, this goes back to that vision thing, right? When we set intentions, it's essentially getting clear about how we want to show up to our day, how we want to show up in a moment. You can take it out of just the daily life sphere and just in general, like when we are clear about how we want to show up in a given moment, in a given space, relationship, opportunity, we're being really clear about something, right? We're being clear and we're setting an intention. And when we do that, it allows us to actually ground and connect ourselves to an intentional purpose and vision. And so essentially, setting intentions, they help us keep our eyes on what matters versus what doesn't. And it also really allows us to bring the concept of having vision into a really simple day-to-day space, right? Like when you have vision for your daily life, you're setting intentions on how you want to show up daily. And we talked about this in a full episode last season, daily life vision. But that's like the power of setting intentions and how they can really help us remain connected and grounded. Because like we just said, when you set intentions, you're clear about something, you have vision for that particular space, that vision for how you want to show up to your day, and you get to connect and ground yourself in that. And it's your starting points, right? It's your home base. And anytime you feel off center, you can come back there and recalibrate. And honestly, when we set intentions, they help us set up the necessary boundaries that are needed so we can show up intentionally and mindfully. Today, we covered 2 practices that can help us remain connected and grounded. The first practice was having self-check-ins. And self-check-ins help us remain connected and grounded by first making that and developing and cultivating that first base connection, which is to ourselves, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And ultimately, that connection helps us build a deeper awareness and intention in how we show up in a given day and honor ourselves. The second connection was setting intentions. And this practice helps us remain connected and grounded by casting mini vision for our day and how we show up in any given space. And ultimately, when we set intentions, we're getting really clear about what matters and what doesn't. And that intention can help us recalibrate and recenter anytime we feel swayed or swirly or in the fog. Of course, there are many, 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 many more practices that can help us remain connected and grounded. So please leave a comment of some practices that you use, you've heard of, you've implemented, that have helped you remain connected and grounded. As always, it is a joy to have conversations over coffee with you. Till next time, friends.